Penix panic. Pacheco, Mixon, and Wright lead the post-draft winners. Herbert headlines the non-winners. Miami adds to their running backs room, and receivers grab their bag. Stand by for this week's top 5 post-draft fantasy headlines. Headline number 1. Falcons make the surprise pick of the draft, maybe of all time. There was no shortage of fantasy-friendly picks on night 1 in the NFL draft last Thursday. The Bears landed Caleb Williams and Odunze. Jayden Daniels went to the Commanders. The Patriots added Maye. The Cardinals landed Marvin Harrison Jr. Malik Nabers went to the Giants. McCarthy is a Viking. Bo Nix a Bronco. And Brock Bowers is a Raider. While we might have wanted better landing spots for Nabers and Bowers, and I'll have more on that in a moment, neither qualifies as a surprise. But those who love the unexpected definitely got what they wanted. It came when the Falcons shocked the football world by drafting Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. This despite having signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million free agent contract in March. The immediate reactions were as over the top and overwrought as you might expect. My SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio colleague Jeff Mans, well, he pulled no punches, claiming this was possibly the worst pick in NFL draft history. ESPN's Mina Kimes took a slightly more reasoned approach, suggesting the Falcons brass were doing their team a disservice by not adding an immediate frontline contributor. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Using their first-round pick on Cousins' eventual successor is not a win-now move. They could have added a pass rusher to boost a defense that finished 25th in pressure rate. Odunze was still available. A top offensive tackle might have helped the cause. But the reactions are based on NFL outcomes. I'm a fantasy manager. My interests lie within a narrow band of 4 specific players. 1, Bijan Robinson, running back 3 on the 2024 Football Guys draft rankings, who happens to be going at that exact price in early best balls. 2, Drake London, wide receiver 10 on our draft rankings, but being selected as a wide receiver 2 as late as the 5th round on best ball 10s. 3, Kyle Pitts, whose tight end 8 average draft position mirrors our rankings. And 4, Cousins, a quarterback 2 with upside, currently going between rounds 10 and 11, depending on where you're drafting. Otherwise, I don't care about an edge rusher or other defensive help. In fact, the worse the Falcons defense plays, the more Atlanta will need to lean on the players we drafted. Beyond that, Cousins will be 36 in August. He's coming off a torn Achilles. Is he a lock to play at previous levels? If it comes down to it, a backup with upside might best serve our fantasy needs, and the strong arm Penix was this year's pre-draft quarterback 2 in Matt Waldman's rookie scouting portfolio. So I get the NFL-related angst. But fantasy managers should be giddy over a pick that better ensures the outcomes of the players we're invested in. Sorry, Falcons fans. Not sorry. Headline number 2, post-draft winners aren't hard to find. While some teams muddied their backfield waters, more on that momentarily, others delivered the glorious clarity fantasy managers crave at the position. Most notably, Isiah, Pacheco, Joe Mixon, and Zamir White came out of the draft with clear paths to workload. All 3 offer running back 1 opportunity and range of reasonable prices. Kansas City's Pacheco is currently going in round 5 as running back 14. Mixon, now with Houston, sits at the tail end of round 7 as running back 21. And White, who averaged 114 yards from scrimmage per game for the Raiders in Josh Jacobs' absence the final month last season, he's available in round 10 as running back 29. Featured roles and value prices are always a winning proposition. Other winners. Before the draft, Fantasy Point Scott Barrett wrote, "May the gods have mercy on our souls if Xavier Worthy lands in Miami or Kansas City." Well, Worthy landed in Kansas City, where he joins fellow speedster Marquise Hollywood Brown to give Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce downfield threats beyond Rashee Rice. Imagine that. Mahomes and Kelce, winners. Meanwhile, as I said at the top, Arizona filled its most glaring need with arguably the best rookie receiver in the draft. Yahoo's Andy Behrens contends Harrison is as NFL ready as it gets. Without question, he could sneak into the top 10 or 12 at his position as a rookie. I agree. And so does Harrison's current best ball ADP. I also agree with Behrens that if Harrison is all that, then Kyler Murray, who finished as the overall quarterback 3 back in 2020 and until last Thursday had Trey McBride and Michael Wilson as his top weapons, has a realistic path to a top 5 finish again in 2024. That would be a win for Murray and for those currently spending quarterback 10 draft capital to land him in early best balls. If this kind of news and info is your jam, you'll love the Football Guys Daily Update. The biggest stories in football summarized, explained, and delivered straight to your inbox every day. Sign up and check it out. It's totally free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. You'll find a link in the description below this video. And while you're there, like, subscribe, and comment. I do appreciate. Headline number 3. I hate to call anybody a loser, but not everybody won. The Chargers traded up 3 spots in the second round to select Georgia receiver Lab McConkey at number 34 overall. He'll hit the ground running as one of the Chargers' top receiving assets. I like McConkey, but he doesn't make Justin Herbert a winner any more than signing DJ Chark this week does. Let's recap. Herbert lost his three most targeted receiving assets from last season: Keenan Allen, Austin Ekeler, and Gerald Everett. And the team also moved on from Mike Williams, a receiver with a pair of 1,000-yard seasons under his belt. And even if Jim Harbaugh views top-of-the-line tackles as offensive weapons, drafting Joe Alt with Nabers and Odunze still on board, well, that won't excite Herbert's dynasty investors. Speaking of Nabers, it's fair to wonder if he was hoping to hear his name when the Chargers went with Alt. Instead, the former LSU star went with pick later to the New York Giants, a team that struggled to average 200 passing yards per game in each of the last 3 seasons. While Nabers apparently greatly respects Daniel Jones, the rest of us abandoned the Danny Dime ship 2 years ago. More seriously, Nabers was the right pick for New York, but fantasy managers are worried his landing spot might limit his immediate impact. Whether Daniel Jones or Drew Lock wind up under center aren't out of line. That said, you might take solace in my usual admonition. Less than ideal quarterback play isn't the death knell for fantasy production at wideout. We can also hope that carries over to tight end. Bowers going to the Raiders at number 13 was mildly disappointing, and not because second-year man Michael Mayer is already on board at the position. Look, Bowers is great. ESPN's Mel Kiper calls the former Georgia standout more than a tight end. He's an offensive entity. I'm not here to fight Kiper, but it's easy to imagine Bowers being more offensive playing with Herbert or Aaron Rodgers or Anthony Richardson or Joe Burrow. Instead, the youngster's mettle will be tested playing with either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So Bowers may continue to be offensive entity number one, but pretending this landing spot is a win seems like a reach. Headline number 4, the Dolphins add to their running back rotation. The Dolphins had 5 running backs on the roster heading into the draft. They added a 6th on Saturday, Tennessee speedster Jaylen Wright. Worth noting, Wright is running back 3 on the Football Guys 2024 Rookie Draft Guide. Get the fully updated post-draft version 3.0 using the link below. So what are fantasy managers to make of a depth chart with Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Wright, Salvon Ahmed, Jeff Wilson Jr., and Chris Brooks? Well, we know what Mike McDaniel thinks about adding talent to an already talented pool. As the Miami coach put it, quote, "There's a supreme urgency to doing right with the ball if you deserve to have it." Wow, I love that. But I love that more when I know exactly who deserves to have the ball in their hand before the game starts. Making things more interesting here, I'm not sure we were drafting Achane in the right spot before this. The second-year man has been going well inside the running back 1 territory in early best balls, while Mostert has been a value in round 9. Expecting a more robust role for Achane than Mostert seems aggressive, but throwing right in the mix, well, that scrambles the values even more. Headline number 5, the great wide receiver reset begins in earnest. Shortly before the draft started last Thursday, the Eagles announced a 3-year contract extension worth $96 million for A.J. Brown. The veteran wideout will make $84 million guaranteed on the deal, which keeps him under contract through 2029. At $32 million per season, Brown becomes the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history for now. Remember, this news came a day after Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions agreed to a 4-year extension, making the Sun God the NFL's highest paid receiver for 24 hours. His extension is worth over $120 million in new money and contains $77 million in total guarantees. Keeps him in Detroit through the 2028 season. Dynasty investors take note. Brown's deal comes less than 2 weeks after the Eagles signed Devontae Smith to a 3-year extension, taking him to 2028. The Eagles also have Jalen Hurts under contract until 2029, keeping this fantastic trio together for at least 5 more seasons. We should all start rooting for a deal that similarly ties St. Brown to current triggerman Jared Goff for the long term. But the bigger picture here is with each new contract, the Vikings get a better idea of what it's going to take to make Justin Jefferson happy for years to come. J.J. McCarthy is an ideal fit for Kevin O'Connell's offense. So the Vikings keeping their relationship with Jefferson intact and on good footing, well, that will remain a top storyline until it's done. That's it for me, Bob Harris. I'll be here next Friday with more of the fantasy news that matters most to you. Also, watch for my fantasy notebook every Monday morning.